love, love, Lord, till I hear the breath of thy Spirit flowing in me.
Hello, welcome to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Wendy Hayes. She's the founder of Revive Ministries. Welcome back, Wendy.
Thanks, Geraldine.
We had you before, but it's lovely to have you again.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
And you've been running a ministry for a while, and I'd like those who don't know you that well, who haven't seen you, to talk a bit about your faith story and how you've overcome fear and increase your faith.
Yeah, well, that's probably been my whole life story with God. I feel like I'm getting used to being pushed out of my comfort zone, and I think that's when I read the scriptures, I just see that as a theme right through. It's if we trust God, amazing miracles will happen, and He's always faithful. But it's challenging to take those steps of faith. So there's been numerous times. I was raised in Albury. We've been in Melbourne for 6 years. But when I was in Albury, I had a vision where I really felt God talk to me about opening a counselling centre. And that was a big step of faith. I wasn't too sure about, how that was going to work and the finances for it. We were living week to week at the time, and but the time came, I had that vision, held it in my heart for a time, and then it became clear that it was time to actually birth that and take that step. And I remember actually signing the lease, we rented a house, and it was going to be, I think $250 a week at that time. And that was, the fear just hit me, even though I knew that God had, was faithful and that He'd asked me to do it, it was a big step of faith. But I would say within probably a month of taking that step, it might have only been 3 weeks, a huge donation came in which covered our rent for the next 2 years. And
amazing.
So, it was incredible. So things like that just continue to build your faith. And so sometimes the steps seem to get bigger, but you've had that preparation of knowing that even though it's scary, God comes through.
Yes, I remember a friend saying to me that when he meets people of faith, it's an amazing journey, because his life was, he said, very boring, very, I suppose, the same, but I suppose, if you had to choose an exciting journey or a very boring journey, which sometimes very comfortable can be very boring, because you know what's going to happen and it gets boring. But,
right.
But it sounds like you've had a very exciting journey of faith.
It has been, and I think my husband Ray, we've been married 25 years now, and he, I was always the one that was very much wanting to play it safe, but he was an adventurer. He did skydiving, he was, and he probably brought that into our relationship and our journey with God. And I think at some point we both made the decision that we never wanted to lay on our deathbed wondering what would have happened if we had have stepped out, if we had have taken risk and trusted God. So, sometimes things have, we've learnt the hard way through doing that. But God is faithful, and He does use all things for our good. So even if it doesn't work out the way you expect, you do learn and grow from that. I just feel like you can never fail when you take those steps.
It's true, because I love that part in the Bible that says, for those who love God, all things work to good.
That's right.
And I've learned best by failure, or mistakes, I should say. And but I heard a good speaker say that you're not a failure if you make mistakes. You're more, I suppose it's more a failure if you stop trying.
That's exactly
not
right.
to judge others. But
that's exactly right. And I think, I heard someone say once, if you want to see God do a miracle in your life, then you've got to put yourself in a position where you need one.
Yes.
and that's the scary part. But, it's taking those bold steps of faith, and that's been our whole life together, really. Our journey in business and financially and in ministry is just
stepping out.
Yeah, that's right. And God is just so faithful. He's come through every time. Even though sometimes it didn't look like it. He kept us hanging sometimes, but eventually, even if things didn't work out, the next time it's like He would redeem it. And so you never lose.
Yeah, I read something where this person who invented something like electricity or the light, who they tried 999 times or something like
Yes.
that before they hit the
Yep.
1,000 times and they got it
Yep.
right.
That's it. The perseverance. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I remember staying with a lady who was in 92, and she helped me get out of my comfort zone because I saw her do visit the poor, help the people at 92,
Wow.
and go to the gym
Yeah.
just when I was feeling like rocking my chair.
That's challenging.
Yes, and so with the ministry that you started, you do counseling and prayer ministry. Is that what you do?
Yeah, I do, and I also like do training. Like my heart is very much to teach and train others to do the sorts of things that I do, because unfortunately there is a huge need for healing. Like the whole mental health epidemic at the moment, there are so many that suffer from anxiety and depression and hopelessness. A lot of people carry wounds from pain and trauma that they've been through, and God just so wants people healed. And unfortunately, I guess I found when I was, in practice, that it very quickly I was overwhelmed with the demand.
Wow.
And so I just really felt that it's time to sort of do more
Train
training.
others so that they
That's
can
right.
do it too.
Yeah.
So you're going to do the training first before you launch yourself out there too much?
Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is another courageous thing, training people, isn't it? Because, these days people fear that others might criticize them for putting themselves out there.
That's right. Oh, look, it's always like to preach, to teach, all of that. It's a scary thing, especially when you've come from the social fear that I've had. But sometimes it's like if you want to accomplish the dreams that you've got in your heart, and I think God makes it clear, the things that He's got for us to do, and so we've just got to keep pushing through that.
Yes, I like that saying. It's better to have loved and lost than not to have loved at all.
Exactly.
So, yeah. And I suppose that's where your foundation, which is your faith in God, has helped you.
Yes, very much. Yeah. Look, early on in my life, I really didn't, I was too scared to do anything. And
On that note, we might have to go for a break.
Sure.
You've been watching Spirit of Life. Stay with us, and we'll be back after the break.
Go till I feel the breath of the Spirit flowing in me. Blow, till I feel the breath of the Spirit flowing in me.
Hello, welcome back to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Wendy Hayes. She's the founder of Revive Ministries. Welcome back, Wendy.
Thanks, Geraldine.
You were talking about your counseling, and then you also do inner healing and at times deliverance or physical healing.
Yes.
Could you tell me a bit about the differences and what they mean, each of them?
Yeah, and look, even though they're different words and different focuses, they do all flow in together. They all affect one another in some way. So we have physical healing, which is obviously more focused on the body. Inner healing is more about bringing truth to wounds and lies that have happened. So it might be trauma. Sometimes when we think about trauma, we more think about near-death experiences or a really catastrophic event. Trauma really can be defined as any painful event that we didn't have the capacity to successfully process and not be scarred from it. And so, for a 2-year-old child, a traumatic event could be a barking dog and mum's not there. And so those things can change the way we see the world. Some of the little things like that can be where fear comes in, where we don't feel safe. Beliefs are formed at those young ages. So inner healing is really about getting to those areas and bringing emotional healing. And deliverance comes in there because with the spiritual world, depending on what our beliefs are, we can attract, the positive spirit, the Spirit of God, or we can attract negative spirits. And so often healing and deliverance will go hand in hand, that as wounds are healed, there's also a spiritual healing at the same time, or sometimes it happens the other way.
Yeah, I've heard also that when people forgive what happened to them, that also gives them, can also help their healing, and also the evil spirits or the negative spirits can't hook in on them as much if they're forgiven. Is that true? Would you find?
Yeah, absolutely. We see that a lot. Because really forgiveness is at the core of the gospel. It's the core of our faith, is, you know, what Jesus did on the cross, that we are forgiven and that we're to forgive others. So it's a big deal in the kingdom of God, forgiveness. I kind of look at it like, if someone has hurt me and it causes a wound on the inside of me, like I kind of like to relate it to the physical so that we can get a picture. It's as if someone came up and just stabbed me, you know, and so there's a wound there. And I see unforgiveness and that as, you know, almost like an infection that sets in on that wound that stops it being able to be healed. And then if you think about flies being like the spiritual, the evil spirits that can come in and get drawn to those sorts of wounds. So when we forgive, it's like we clean that out. There can still be a wound there sometimes where we need to bring truth, but unforgiveness...
Like lies, would you say that
Yes.
you say the infection is believing lies? Would you say that's part of it too?
Yeah.
Believing negative thoughts about yourself or about
That's right.
someone else.
Yeah, that's kind of the wound. So I see that the unforgiveness as like the infection. Once that's gone, then the wound can be healed. So we can get truth then to those places.
So the truth confronts the lies, and then they once they bring in the truth, sort of like the renewal of the mind in the Bible, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like in John 8:32, Jesus said that you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. So really, you know, coming into freedom and healing is all about truth. And so when we know the truth of who we are, the difficulty is for most of us that, like we said earlier, that often these lies are in the subconscious. And so they're not so easy to get to. It's more we feel the effects of it through our emotions, but we don't always know what the belief is, what the lie is. And so within a healing ministry, that's what we're looking at. We're asking God to take us to those places to help us understand what those lies are, where they were formed, and asking Him to bring truth to that.
Wow. And can you tell us of any experiences, obviously it has to be confidential, of someone who's received a healing?
Yeah. Look, we see a lot of emotional healing on a day-to-day basis. There's a couple that stand out. We had a lady just a few weeks ago at my local church who came really looking more for physical healing. So she had cancer of the bone and blood. She decided not to have any more treatment because she'd had treatment a few times before, and it made her feel worse, and it wasn't actually helping.
Yes.
They were saying it was incurable. And so she asked for prayer. So we did a little bit of inner healing, and then I just prayed with her for the physical healing. And we got an email a couple of weeks later saying that she was completely cancer-free.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she's just a beautiful lady. I'm so excited for her.
Oh,
that's
that's
her journey.
incredible.
Yeah. I had another lady that came a number of years ago, and she was told that she could never have children. But she had felt like God had promised her that she would, and so she was holding on to that in hope. But by the time I saw her, she'd been 4.5 years trying to fall pregnant, and she was depressed. She'd lost hope. She was feeling quite disconnected from God. She didn't understand what was happening. So we did a number of sessions. We did about 4 sessions, not even focusing really on that specifically, but just reconnecting her with God and getting truth. And she very excitedly contacted me after the 4th session to tell me that she was pregnant.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah,
That's
and then a few
fantastic.
years, probably 5 years later, she contacted me again, and she'd been trying for the last 4 years to get pregnant again without success. And so again, we did 4 sessions, And within a few weeks, she contacted me to say that she was pregnant again.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so she really believes that whatever God was doing in those times was bringing healing not only to her emotionally and her ability to connect with God and know His love again, but also that was out working with a physical healing.
Wow, that's a wonderful story. On that note, we'll go for a break.
Great.
You've been watching Spirit of Life. Stay with us and we'll be back after the break.
Blow till I feel the breath of the Spirit blowing in me. Blow, blow till I feel the breath of the Spirit blowing in me.
Hello, welcome back to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Wendy Hayes. She's the founder of Revive Ministries. Welcome back, Wendy.
Thanks, Geraldine.
So, you've with the healing ministry, if anyone wants to get in contact with you or wants to ask questions, what will they do?
So probably the easiest way is to go through my website, which is reviveministries.com.au. They can contact me via email through the website, and there's a little bit of information there for them about what we do.
Oh, fantastic. And besides doing the healing ministry, you also have written a book. Could you tell us more about your book?
I have, yes. So the book is called Above All Else, and it's about intimacy with God. I guess out of my own experience with God, I just understand how much He desires intimacy with us. And I often hear Christians say that, they want to get closer to God, and sometimes they feel that there's blockages there, or they're a bit frustrated that they find that difficult. And really the book is about talking about some of the hindrances to our intimacy with God. Sometimes you can draw wrong conclusions about why we can't sense His presence. Sometimes we think that He's favouring other people and He doesn't want to meet us in those ways, and that's just so not true. He really wants to be close, and for each one of His kids to know His presence and to know just how real He is in their everyday life. So yeah, I wrote the book just to encourage people and to address some of those issues that can actually cause us to draw back a little bit from God. Out of my own experience, one time I went through a difficult time where felt like I couldn't connect to God anymore. And I thought that He had drawn back from me. But what I found was there was a little place in my heart that actually was believing that He was angry at me. So that one little part of my heart, even though the rest of me was trying to get close to Him, because He's a respecter of our wishes and He won't force Himself on us, the fact that I'd put that wall up meant that I couldn't experience Him to the degree that most of me wanted to, and that He wanted me to. So I recognise that in a lot of people that I minister to, that there's sometimes little lies, little areas of our heart that doesn't feel safe with God. Sometimes we've grown up with different beliefs about what He's like. We often hear the fire and brimstone things, and that can kind of stick with us, that we can think, well, maybe, how does He see me? And if He was close, would He like me? And so those little insecurities can cause little blockages to our capacity.
Yeah, I think it's very true that in our subconscious we can hold these things and not be conscious about. Because I know one person who said that they always fall asleep when it comes to prayer time. And when my friend prayed with them, they realized that they were actually angry with God, and that was their way of, they would always fall asleep during a sermon or prayer ministry, and that was how, so they went for prayers for the sleeping, but underneath it was the anger, which they weren't aware of, which you're talking about, the hidden parts of our heart.
Exactly, yeah. Like I had a time once when I was in prayer, probably 12 years or so ago, where just these words came out of my mouth that surprised me, but the words were, Father God, if there is a blockage between me and you, can you show me what that is? And it surprised me that those words came out, but within the next few days, all of this stuff from my childhood came up, where I recognized that because of times where I didn't feel protected by my with my earthly dad, that he wasn't there to protect me from some things, that I had subconsciously thought that my heavenly dad was like that too. And so he worked through and we removed those blockages. But the thing is, we don't know, like I didn't know that there was any disconnection. I thought that I knew that he loved me and that I was close to him, but I didn't realize how much closer it was possible to be to him.
Would you be able to pray for the audience to receive some of that closeness to God for those who would like to?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do that. Yeah. So, Father, I pray right now that you would come to each person that's desiring a closer relationship with you, that desires to feel you in a tangible way. And Father, I pray that you would bring the truth of what those obstacles are for each individual person. And Lord, that you would lead them on the path to getting freedom and healing, so that they can experience the fullness of your love. Father, I thank you that you know the answers, Lord, and that we don't have to figure it out all by ourselves, that you can lead each one. And so, Father, I pray that for each and every person, that they would know the height and depth and width and breadth of your love. Thank you, Father. Amen.
Thank you for that beautiful prayer. And I believe some people would be touched by this, but I'm always concerned about those who don't get touched, because it used to be me always.
Yes,
But as you were saying, that sometimes there's more blockages or subconscious things.
Yeah.
And I suppose they could read your book perhaps and or connect with you on the website.
Yeah, absolutely. That it is kind of an area of specialty for me, that when there's been blockages where people find it difficult to sense God's presence, and a lot of inner healing ministries rely on that, so it can be very frustrating for people, even when they take the step to go and get healing, that they still can't feel that they can connect to God.
So it's a process, isn't it? It takes time.
It is, absolutely, yeah. And that's just an area that I particularly love to help people, is to encourage them and help get to the root of what those blockages are, and to work through those things. But absolutely, I would encourage anybody to know that it's not possible, and sometimes it just requires perseverance, and very often it requires getting the help of someone else that can help them and pray
or they
with
could
them.
get praise from their church too.
Yes, absolutely.
And if they would like your book, what would they do? Would they go on the website?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, they can purchase it on the website, or if they want to email me, if anyone feels that finance is an issue, they can just email me.
And they could get it free.
Absolutely. I'd
wonderful.
be happy to give it away for them.
Thank you so much, and God bless you, and goodbye. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
You've been watching Spirit of Life. Join us again next week. Goodbye, and God bless you.
Bring